Why isn't it all right for black women to be angry? Why is it necessary for them to pretend that it doesn't hurt? And that's what they do all day, every day, in order to get along with people like you.
Let's talk with Andrew Love.
These very Christians who have studied the Bible supposedly evidently skipped the place where it says, "Judge not that ye be not judged."
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're going to be a Christian, you can't be judging other people. And they have forgotten the verse that says, "Insomuch as ye have done it unto one of these, my brethren, so have ye done it unto me." You shoot a black person, and that black person, you have once again shot one of my 30th to 50th cousins. Because every human being on the face of this earth is one of my 30th to 50th cousins, because we all came from the same place. So I get really upset when people are trying to destroy people who don't look like me, but who came from the same place that I did. And we all did. And if we all trace our DNA back as far as we could, we'd find that a portion of our DNA came from a country in Africa. Every single human being on the face of the earth. We don't want to admit that. And when I say it to a group, somebody say, "I'm not African." I say, "Well, yeah, you are. You just aren't smart enough to realize it." That's not funny. You think I'm joking.
I agree.
Yeah, not a joke. It's time for us to say, "Insomuch," and whenever a Christian comes at me, I say, "Insomuch if ye have done it as ye have done it unto one of these, my brethren, so have ye done it unto me." You remember who said that? "Oh, Mrs. Elliot, you're just difficult to talk to." I say, "No, I'm difficult to shout at." Now, if you want to have a conversation, we can have one. But if you want to get into a shouting match, we can do that. Because I've read the Bible. I've tried to live the Bible. I believe in a lot of what's in the Bible, and some of it is pure nonsense. And I know that. And it disagrees itself. Every time you turn, on this page you say this, and then the next page it says
contradiction.
Totally, because it was written by different people. And
We breaking up.
I don't have a problem with that, but there are one on, and in the Jewish Book of Faith, in the Talmud, and there are lots and lots of wonderful pieces of information and morals. But you can't force your morals onto another person unless you are so perfect that they can see how wonderful you are behaving. And if you behave that wonderfully, your beliefs must be right. When Christians are behaving so beautifully that they are somebody to look up to, then you'll see these churches open up again. But right now, churches are closing one after another because what's being said from the pulpit is not being practiced.
Yes.
Right. Let me say something, Jay. That since you have pointed out the thing about these so-called people who follow these religions, why come that most people don't realize the contradiction in the book, and also teach people to educate themselves outside the book? Because the Bible, the so-called Bible, is more to it than just it's more to the Bible than just the Bible. There's other things that ties into the Bible that they won't study to give them a better understanding of what history is. They say like a book of histories, and everything's not in that book, and you understand it. But why come they don't understand everything's not in that book?
It's the same reason for why the most segregated hour in the week is Sunday morning from 11 to 12. You go to church and you hear say all those wonderful things, and you read those wonderful things, and then I watched a woman in the Methodist church. She'd watch, and she was so holy and took change out of the collection plate.
I mean,
and we'd sit in my two sisters and my brother and I were teenagers, and we'd sit in the choir loft, and they'd pass the collection plate, and she'd put something in there to take change out. And I always wondered if she'd take the right amount out, or was she taking more? It was just, we do something, we talk about it for an hour on Sunday. And then we go back to normal on Monday morning.
Yeah,
we hear
that's
it, we talk it, we believe it on Sunday. On Monday, it's business as usual. And you know it, and so do I.
say that one more time. Now you're breaking up about the church again. You said the church is the most segregated.
Yeah, the
Still,
most
even
segregated
today.
hour, the most segregated hour in the United States of America is from 11 till 12 o'clock on Sunday morning. Because here's the white church, and here are the people who don't worship right, but worshiping the same person. But the way we white people do is better than the way those other people do, because obviously God doesn't like them, or he would have made them white. And that's exactly what you will hear in the church. Well, if God had loved you, he'd have made them white. God had nothing to do with the color of our skin. The only reason my skin is lighter than yours is because people who look like you moved farther from the equator and got into the northern climes, and they weren't exposed to much sunlight, and so they didn't produce as much melanin. That's the only reason my skin is lighter than yours. It has nothing to do with God. It has to do with the physical environment in which we live.
All right.
You knew that.
All right, Mr. J. I know you had talked. I know I watched some of your interviews on other podcasts, like T.I., Roland Martin, and a lot of people answer some of the same questions, and there's some things that never hit on that
Okay,
they didn't get.
Here's what you need to deal with.
Mhm.
A mother or a daughter or a father or a son who says, I'm biracial and I'm having trouble with my family. And I say, whoa, 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 whoa. Which of your parents came from another planet? Well, neither one of them. Well, then you can't be biracial. Number one, let's give up the language of the 1500s. Let's stop calling people biracial, because of earthlings, because there's only one race of people on the face of the earth. We come in different sizes and shapes and colors and genders and gender orientations, but we are all members of the same race. There's no such thing as biracial people. If you're going to say, well, we're different, then say mosaic. A mosaic is an art form that is new, beautiful, unique, and made of many different elements. So instead of using biracial, multiracial, or polyracial, let's say mosaic, because that's what we all are. We are all, each one of us is new, unique, beautiful, and made of different elements. It's time to modernize our language and stop using words. And right now, I just finished reading a book in which it constantly talks about racial this, racial that, many races. And so I'm circling wherever it says white, wherever it says black, and I'm going to send those pages back to the person who wrote the book. I'm going to say, do you want to stop using these two words? Because this white person, stop using those two words. You can't write a book in opposition to racism and use the words white and black to define people. That makes sense to you?
Yes, it makes sense.
Yes.
Absolutely. I think.
Well, then let's start doing it. So let's when a teacher says, oh, I have 3 black children and 2 white. No, wait. Show me your black children. Well, that you can tell when a child's that kid is not black. That kid is a shade of brown. Don't let me hear you call a child black or call a child white ever again, because that is not real. That is not reality. And I know young melanaceous and melanotic, particularly males, really hate to hear that there ain't no such thing as black, because it has taken them all these years to get identified and to have it be all right to be black.
Mm-hmm.
If it's all right with you, if it makes you feel better to realize that you are the color of something that is ugly and malignant and bad, take it. Mm-hmm. Then when the teacher starts expecting you to live down to that expectation, because after all, you want to be called black, a lot of teachers will, okay, you want to be black? I'll treat you the way we should treat something black. How do you like me now? And that's exactly what happens.
What they tell us now, administration, what they tell us is you have to identify a child the way they want to be identified, not as how the parent identifies them, not as how you feel they should be identified as, but how
As-
the child feels.
As how they want to be identified. If that child is old enough to know what's best for his self-identification, he is too smart to be taught by most educators today. He doesn't belong in the elementary school. He belongs at the college level. This is ridiculous.
It is.
It is.
Know
It
what's
is.
best for them. If they knew what was best for them, we would close the schools.
That
They
part.
are there to be educated in a way that will make their lives and the lives of all of those around them better in the future. Educators are supposed to lead people out of ignorance. And if you perpetuate children's ignorance by calling them black and white, you are saying, I'm not going to lead you out of ignorance. I'm going to perpetuate your ignorance so that your parents won't accuse me of being bad for you. Bad is black. Come on, people. Black is bad. It's this. I am more than disgusted with what we have been doing in education for the last 25 years. 25 years, these last 25 have been much worse than, well, in the 30s, it was bad. But in the 50s and 60s and 70s, it was getting better. And then suddenly,
It's horrendous.
some people got a twisted religion. And now we have all these charter schools springing up so that kids will learn the proper things. But the proper things seem to be not the truth. But as the present governor of Florida says, what will make their lives right in the future? You can't make their lives right by teaching them a lie.
Exactly. That's ridiculous.
Nope.
Okay, that's a whole nother rabbit hole to run down. That's just it.
But educators have the responsibility to see to it that rabbit hole is not open in their classroom.
Right.
Educators have the responsibility to lead children out of ignorance. And if their parents think the children are black, then you have to say to them, well, you see, your parents were taught in a different day, at a different time, when people didn't know the truth. But since then, we've learned the truth. We biologists and the people who study these things have come up with the idea that maybe a whole lot of mistakes were made in the past, that we can stop making them now. Just because it happened in the past doesn't mean it's good. A whole lot of things that are in the past need to stay in the past. We'll study about them. We'll study about them and learn why it isn't working. It didn't work in the past for blacks.
Nope.
It didn't work in the past for women. It didn't work in the past for people who were less educated. It only worked for about 1% of the population, and the rest of us are working for them.
What's the solution? I know a lot of people answer about the problem. What's the solution?
Real education is the solution. I mean, telling the truth. And I don't mean critical race theory. I mean curriculum respecting truth and expecting educators to teach these kids the truth instead of what those educators will be praised for on the street when they get on the street.
Yeah,
in
test
that community.
scores. Test scores.
Yeah.
It's all about
Yeah.
test scores.
Test scores. I think every teacher should be given a test. At the beginning of the year, every teacher should be given a really tough test, like what color is the sky, and expect them to pass it, and then grade them on their salary. Their salaries should depend on, but not in Iowa right now. Every teacher is getting $500,000 a year. Is that it? 50,000, and they aren't going to write contracts again for 12 years. They're going to let that will be it for 10 years. 10 years from now, we will maybe change that. The whole thing is just totally upside down and backward. Makes no sense.
Yeah, what I'll ask you though, the powers that be who control these systems, if how can you know, like the way the system is designed and set up, there's gotta be a break in the way. If the system not working, it's either broken or you need to start a whole new system.
Dismantling.
Yeah, I'm saying that because you got people today like this generation, then like I was born in the 70s, but this generation are so dependent upon the school system, they don't really know nothing anyway. And so you don't know what you don't know. So, the mindset is different. So how we go get the parents, because some of the parents just as, no offense, just as dumber than the kids. Man, I'm sorry. Let's be real.
The parents are paying a lot of money to have their children educated for the future.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we ought to be doing, educated for a better future, not to repeat the mistakes in the past. If you're an educator, you lead people out of ignorance. You can't do that if you continue to perpetuate the lies of the past. And when you read some of this stuff in some of these textbooks that describes how the white people that came here to colonize helped these original inhabitants of this land learn how to work and learn how to make this land more profitable. And you read that and you think, my God, did they not realize how valuable these people were, how much they knew, determined they were to protect the environment, how absolutely determined they were to not to change. One of the major differences between so-called white people, melanated people, and melanaceous melanotic people, one of the main differences between those have less melanin and those who have more melanin is when those with less melanin that we call white people come into a new environment, they immediately adjust the environment to fit their needs.
Yep. It works too everywhere. Yep.
Absolutely. That's what we do because that's the way we are trained to behave because we were born in a colder climate where you had to build a house, arrange for a fire, get the wood to make a fire, find a place where there's water, do all these things. If you are melanaceous or melanotic, you probably were born originally into a place where there was water available. All you had to do was follow the animals to find where the water was, where there was food growing on the trees, where it was easy to find food and then to eat the seeds from the food that you found, where you didn't have to have clothes because of the heat of the sun. All you needed was melanin to protect your body from the rays of the sun. So they didn't have to adjust the environment to fit their needs. They had to adjust their needs to fit the environment. That's not what white folks do. We adjust the environment to fit our needs. And so we destroy water, we destroy the air, we destroy the land, and we think this is progress. People of color don't destroy anything. They simply make themselves more, they adapt to the environment. White folks adapt the environment to themselves. Big difference. Huge difference.
That's what I was getting at. Like in the school, so Terrence is a teacher. If she dare teach the truth, and some other teachers, they would get rid of those teachers. Like they kick you out the church and kick you out the colleges. They'll do this to some of the teachers.
I'll tell you how to avoid being kicked out of a truth. If you're K through 12, yes. Learn how to teach every kid to read.
Yeah.
And they'll let you stay. They'll hire you back every year, no matter how weird you are. If every kid coming out of your classroom can read, and I know that because it happened with me. I had second grade teachers go to the principal and say, will you ask Mrs. Elliot if she'll take this kid after school because I can't teach him to read. Now, they wouldn't speak to me in the hallway, but they would go to the principal and say, would you please ask her to teach this kid because I can't teach him. They had nothing but criticism where I was concerned. But when they had a kid that obviously they weren't being successful with, they would send him up to me after school and I would teach him to read. Now, if an educator wants to be rehired every year, all she or he has to do is be so good at what they do and so good for kids and so good for education that they wouldn't fire you no matter what you did. That's what we have to do. But those are hard to find and you won't pay them enough. But there are those teachers, I know there are, who would work for nothing just to be able to tell kids the truth.
Yeah, this system is different. And some people put it on COVID. But you know, our kids are system is very broken. Our kids are very behind, years behind. And it just depends on where you are. I'm at a Title I school. It's a predominantly African-American, very small percentage of other ethnicities. And the system is just, I unfortunately, am not going to be returning. Don't plan on returning next year because it's too. Education, what defines education today is different. It's different. It's defined very different than its original.
What the truth is, what the truth really is.
Where it was, how it was defined back in the past, creating productive, educated members of society. It's not that. It's not that today. It's all about.
But part of the reason it isn't is because of television and the screen. Kids are being taught to sit in front of the screen and respond to the screen. And I've been a visitor in some of those schools, and here are kids sitting there at these tables like this, waiting for the teacher with a screen in front of them, waiting for the teacher to come and correct their work. And I'm thinking, look at all the time that's being wasted that this kid could be learning right now. Instead of waiting for somebody to come and correct his work, he could be learning something valuable instead of sitting there. It's a waste of time, a waste of teacher time, a waste of money, and it's a bad system. However, parents could recognize what's going on and go to the school and say, I'm trying to keep my kid off the screen after school. But the school says you can be on the screen all day. My kid comes home expecting to be on the screen. I say to him, you read this book. And you're not gonna use Kindle. You're gonna read this book. Out of this 2 covers are some pages, and you're gonna read these pages. And you're gonna do this for a half an hour every night after school. You are going to read. We're going to have sustained silent reading for half an hour after school every day, because reading is truly fundamental.
It is.
And
kids do not want to read. They don't know how to read. I'm at middle school.
If they don't know how to read, it's because their teacher didn't know how to teach them.
They weren't taught. I mean, and we're coming off of they weren't taught, at least the last few years, and then when they were home during COVID, they weren't learning anything. But we have technology that is a distraction, that distracts them and really, I think it disables us.
Well, as many as 20% of most of our communities, the children in most communities, at least 20% of them are dyslexic, moderately to severely dyslexic. Now, have you seen the film The Eye of the Storm?
Yes. Okay.
All 15 of those kids were dyslexic, moderately to severely dyslexic. The principal gave me my class roll, and he said, Miss Elliot, these kids never learn to read. Nobody else has been able to teach them to read, and neither will you. Pass them on and get them out of here. They'll never amount to anything anyway. And that was a lovely man, but he was simply telling me, warning me ahead of time that he didn't want me to get too upset if they wouldn't learn. And I thought, well, you silly man. So I went to the office, and I looked at their cumulative files, and they all had high math scores, but low reading and spelling scores, if that's what's going on. The kid's intelligence is good, his mind is good, his thinking skills are there, but he doesn't see words the way they're written, and he doesn't hear them the way they're said. And I had a course in Orton Sligerland phonics, and he gave me those 16 kids, and I could have kissed him after I realized what he had given me. I could have kissed him because I knew, oh God, it was fun. I knew that every one of those kids was going to be reading at a grade level, 4th grade level or higher when they left the room, because I know how to teach the dyslexic child. I took a course in that, and it absolutely works. It's just a no-brainer. It's just beautiful. And the kids came in that first day scared like little fawns, and because they said that they knew that I was the witch in the world, but they used the B word, and I knew that because I know that's the word that's most. Yeah, that's often used to refer to me. It's called being in total control, honey. It's an it's an
Being in total control, honey.
I love that.
I like how she used them terms.
I love it.
Somebody calls you the B word, you say thank you very much, because it means being in total control, and they won't know why you're thanking them, and they don't have to know because you know.
That's right.
Okay. I said,
she writing it down.
I am.
Yeah, write it down. Write it down. And another. Or they'll call me somebody who can't understand normal thinking. Now, what's the acronym for that? Yes, they're going to So the B word or the C word. So you have to figure out what it stands for, and then it then doesn't bother you anymore. So it's interesting. I told those kids that first day, you kids are afraid, aren't you? They said, yeah. Why? Because we heard of what a hard teacher you are, how tough you are. I said, well, you're going to find out that I'm not as tough as you've heard, but as long as you practice the listening skills, and as long as you do what I tell you to, and you'll learn, and this is the way it is. And so first thing I did was teach them the listening skills, and then I wrote something on the board. I wrote was on the board, and I said, what is that? Part of them said was, some of them part of them said no, saw. Some of them said nothing. I said, okay, what's this word? And I put up the word on. Part of them said no, part of them said on, some of them said nothing. I said, now I'll tell you what your problem is. You kids don't see words the way they're written, and you don't hear words the way they're said. But I'm going to teach you how to do that, so that won't be a big problem for you in the future. When you leave here, you'll be reading at or above the 4th grade level. And they looked at each other like, she's crazy, isn't she? Yeah, there's something wrong with this one. And I said, just, okay, I'll prove it to you. And I took 5 of them back to the table, and I taught them a consonant sound, 5 consonant sounds and a vowel. And I said, now, read that word. And what is it? Can. Now put a B there. Ban. Now put a T there. Tan. Now put an F there. Fan. Now put a T at the end. Fat, gat, hat, sat. Now, look at how many words you could read just now. And you can spell all those words. Spell these words. So I pronounced the word, taught them how to say it, sound it, spell it, say it. And they looked at me like, well, this works. I said, yeah, this works. This is called education, boys and girls. This is how you bring people out of ignorance. You can have a problem hearing words the way they're said and seeing words the way they're written. And then somebody can come along and say, yeah, you have a problem with that, but here's the cure for that problem. And they were absolutely delighted. They went from that table, they could read and spell 30 words after half an hour that they had never been able to read or spell before. Now, we did that every day for the rest of the school year for 180 days. They left my room reading at or above the 4th grade level. Some of them, their independent reading level was 6th grade.
Can I ask you a question?
But they had been, and the other 2 teachers called them the dummy group. We did special things all I believe in active learning. So we did a lot of active things. And the other kids would say to their teachers, their 3rd grade teachers, why can't we do what Mrs. Elliott's kids do? And there are 2 teachers, and I've heard them say it. She has the dummy group. That's the only way they can learn. And I thought, God is going to get you for this. And last summer, I went to the cemetery, and God got them. And I've heard it happen. I've seen it happen. I've been exposed to it happening. I'll never forget the day the woman came up to. I was working for U.S. West, and some dingy woman, pale-faced woman, on heels this high, came diddling me, taking short steps. He diddled up to Linda Guillory, tall, dark, melanaceous Linda Guillory, and said, Linda, when I see you, I don't see you black. And I stepped back because I thought there's going to be bloodshed here. She's going to kill her. And Guillory just said, I think you have an eye problem. Let's make an appointment with the optometrist so that you take care of your. Did that woman say thank you? She said, no, I don't. Well, thank you. And she got away on those heels just as fast as she could go. And I said, Linda, that was beautiful. And she said, well, you see me black, don't you? I said, I do, because I said one day in your presence, your color isn't important to me. And you said it's important to us. And I'd learned a whole lot from you in that minute. And I said, maybe she just learned a lot from you too. She said, well, I hope so. I'll bet she won't say she doesn't see anybody black anymore. All it takes is one really good learning situation, one moment, and it can change your life forever.